What if our deepest anxieties, the very things that seem to be driving our self-destruction, aren't actually a bug, but a feature of a heroic journey our entire species is on? Well, that's the core idea we're exploring today. We're diving into Othmane Wagdi's bold vision for humanity's future, a blueprint that all starts with a really simple but powerful story. So, at the very heart of this vision is the story of Adam Stork. Just imagine this. You've got a stork, and for millions of years, its species has been guided by this perfect, selfless instinct. But then one day, Adam's mind just wakes up, he becomes conscious, he develops an intellect, and he decides, you know what? I'm going to experiment. I'm going to fly off the ancient prescribed course. And this, right here, isn't just a story about a bird. Adam Stork's story is our story. It's a powerful metaphor for what's called the human condition, that deep internal war that's been raging inside us for 2 million years. It's our ancient selfless instincts versus our new experimenting intellect. And according to Wagdi, this very conflict, that's the root of our deepest anxieties. Now, this internal war isn't just some abstract theory for the author. It's actually a mirror of his own hero's journey. He calls himself a conscious canary in a coal mine because he felt this conflict so personally. See, he was an engineer, literally caught between two worlds, the raw energy of his home in a Moroccan oil port and the structured intellect of his German university. And that personal struggle, trying to reconcile those two sides of himself, that's the quest that drives this entire blueprint for survival. All right, so if you're going to build a solution, you first have to really, truly understand the problem. That brings us to the first major section of this blueprint, diagnosing what the author calls our concrete cage. And this diagnosis is really grounded in some solid scientific observation. It's built on 4 key pillars. We've already talked about number 1, that internal war. Now we're going to see how that war plays out in the real world through something called urban neurosis, our misplaced footprint, and a really chilling idea known as the banality of evil. Think about our cities. They're incredible achievements of intellect, right? But the problem is, they completely starve our ancient instincts. The author borrows a term from the famous psychiatrist Carl Jung to describe the result: urban neurosis. We basically live in these static prisons using fossil fuels to fight against the natural seasons, and all that does is make that war inside our heads even worse. And look, this isn't some fringe issue affecting a few people. The sheer scale of it is what's so alarming. The UN projects that by 2050, a whopping 75% of all people on Earth will be living in megacities. That means billions of us will essentially be trapped inside these environments that fueled that neurosis. And this urban boom leads to what the author calls a monumental intellectual error, our misplaced footprint. Basically, in our rush for efficiency, we built our biggest cities right on top of the planet's most vital organs. Think river deltas, coastal swamps. We've literally paved over the Earth's kidneys and lungs, choking the very systems that keep the planet alive. So, why would we do this? Are we just monsters bent on destruction? Well, the author points to a concept from the philosopher Hannah Arendt, the banality of evil. The idea is that we're not destroying our world because of some deep-seated malice. It's much simpler and maybe even scarier. It's just thoughtlessness. We're just following the rules of a broken system without stopping to think. And that is what leads directly to the urban neurosis and our misplaced footprint. Okay, so once you understand that diagnosis, you realize we're at a truly pivotal moment, a critical crossroads in the human story. This brings us to the second part of the blueprint, which lays out a very stark choice that will define our future. And believe me, the choice couldn't be more dramatic. Will we continue down the path of the mechanized man, becoming a kind of synthetic, disconnected version of ourselves? Or do we make a hard pivot and choose to become the stewards of the new Earth? So let's break down those two paths. On the one hand, you have what's called the transhumanist trap. This is where we try to solve the problem of being human by basically editing our humanity out of the picture with technology. The other path? A regenerative existence. This is more of a biological homecoming, where our intellect and our tech are put in service of our ancient, natural instincts. And the author is really clear about this. This isn't some choice for our great-grandchildren to make. He argues we are in a flat-out race between self-destruction and self-understanding. And making this choice, well, it takes courage, and it needs to happen now, before that regenerative path is closed off to us for good. Okay, so if we do choose that regenerative path, what does that actually look like? How do we get there? This brings us to what is, for the author, the most important part of this whole thing. We're shifting from the diagnosis to the solution, building the arc. And this quote right here, it really gets to the heart of his motivation. He says, I am not writing it because of my ego, I am writing in spite of it. This wasn't about him. He felt this profound sense of duty, like he was that canary, and he had an obligation to show everyone else the way out of the mine. And this is absolutely key to understanding why the book is structured the way it is. The arc, this whole swarm of solutions, that's the real point. That's the thing he, as an engineer, felt this burning need to build. But he knew he couldn't just drop a blueprint on the world. He had to first explain the diagnosis to the flock, to make it crystal clear why this new arc was so desperately needed. So what's actually in this arc? Well, it's not just one magic bullet. It's what he calls a swarm of solutions that all work together. We're talking about things like the garden generator concept, a new way to live, Casbah 3000 settlements that mix ancient wisdom with modern tech, and even bigger ideas like a seasonal migration hypothesis for humans and reframing ourselves as a keystone species in the ecosystem. But at the very core of this arc is the garden generator. I mean, just think about this. It's a closed-loop habitat that's designed to be a net positive for the environment. So instead of just consuming resources, it actually generates its own energy, recycles its own water, and produces its own food. It's the physical embodiment of that regenerative existence we were talking about. And all of this incredible engineering, all of this building, it all leads to the final stage of this journey, the ultimate goal. And it's called the Great Reconciliation. Because this was never just about building better buildings. It's about finding a whole new way of being. The whole point, the end game, is healing. It's about finally ending that 2 million-year-old war between our intellect and our instincts. The idea is simple. If we can transform our inner world, we can then transform our outer world to match. And this makes it really clear that this isn't a journey for one person to take alone. The author extends a direct invitation, a call to action for what he calls a new covenant. And it's an invitation for everyone, for the captains of industry, for parliaments and NGOs, and really for the entire human family, to all of us, an invitation to build this new world together. Which leaves us with one last really powerful thought. The author has this saying, when the why is clear, the how gets easier. So after laying out the entire diagnosis, the crossroads we face, and this incredible potential for reconciliation, the question is turned back to us. What will be our why? What will be the reason that's strong enough to make us finally start building the arc?